itself as existing. Okay? I'm representing a certain state of the physical world now. There are forces implicit in that state which will take me toward the next state of the universe, and from the point of view of God, that will be the best next state of the universe. Okay? So they're directed toward physical microstates which collectively determine the next best state of the physical world in which the agent represents itself as existing. To this extent, petite apperceptions are no less directed toward the good, but is not the good as represented by the agent, it is the natural good of the world as understood by God. Second point. The distinction between desire teleology and natural teleology correlates closely for Leibniz with the distinction between distinct and confused perception and the distinction between the modifications of form and primary matter. For Leibniz, the pursuit of the good as good can only occur on the basis of clear or distinct perceptions. I mean, you have to represent something as good, as a consequence of the inherent activity, the positive active force of the monad. To the extent that a monad fails to achieve its desired state or achieves a perceptual state that is independent of anything desired by it, which obviously most of our states are, right? I'm not always consciously desiring that the world should be one way rather than another. To the extent that I reach this other kind of state, the change in the monad state will be explained not by its desire for the good, but by the way the world is as represented by that monad. It'll be a passive effect that I experience. This will reflect the way in which the monad, through its perceptions, is passively responsive to the effects of external things on it. As Leibniz comments in a 1707 letter to Coste, and this is the last quote, I have shown elsewhere that when we take things in a certain metaphysical sense, we're always in a state of perfect spontaneity, and that what we attribute to the impressions of external things arises only from confused perceptions in us corresponding to them, perceptions that cannot fail to be given to us from the start by virtue of pre-established harmony. Third, if we take seriously the idea that a monad is spontaneous in the production of all its perceptual states, including those which are confused or matter-bound, then we can appreciate the role that Leibniz reserves for physical laws in the explanation of monadic change. Take any case of intentional action where the perceptual state of the soul of an organism includes the desire for X. Suppose the desire for X outweighs all other desires the organism has and hence is sufficient to determine a volition to X. It goes for X. Now, will the next perceptual state of the soul reflect its enjoyment of X or not? Question. I submit there is nothing about the organism's desires or its striving sub ratione boni that will answer this question. Whether or not it enjoys X will depend upon whether or not the world cooperates with the satisfaction of its desire. And this will depend on the confused perceptions that arise in it corresponding to, quote, the impressions of external things on it. It is true that those confused perceptions arise as a result of petite apperception, but Leibniz's most plausible account of confused or petite perception develop is that they do so in accordance with laws of fitness that govern the order of the physical world. It is reasonable to say that a teleological order is realized through the action of petite apperception, but it is an order that Leibniz has no way of describing, I claim, independently of his account of the laws of nature as contingent decrees that evidence God's wisdom. That is, the laws that explain how my perceptions change from the point of view of a representation of the world are just the physical laws. Right? That explains to me what state I'm going to be in next. And they're fit laws, so there's a kind of teleological order instantiated there. So to sum up, we started with the idea that the laws of nature, laws of optics, laws of motion, are contingent decrees chosen by a perfectly free and intelligent being as the optimal order for the physical world. Leibniz objects, however, that to the extent that these laws define the order of nature, they require a ground in the natures of created beings, and this ground cannot be had if the nature of body is such as mechanists conceive it to be. For the grounding claim to be supported, a body must be constituted by principles of force or primitive active power, which Leibniz identifies with the form of a substance. This prompted the question of how we are to conceive of the determination of change within a substance. How do there arise the determinations of primitive active force, which Leibniz identifies with the derivative forces found in bodies? In his late writings, Leibniz represents primitive active force as the principle of change within a non-extended soul-like substance, and he attributes the changes within such substances to the exercise of a power of appetition. I have argued, though, that the exercise of this power can't be understood or explained except by appeal to the very physical laws that initiated the original demand for explanation. So that, in a nutshell, is the story. On Leibniz's account, in the attempt to explain the order of nature, we are led from laws to powers and from powers back to laws again. Thank you.